Welcome to Mining the Mysteries, a catechetical podcast that explores the depths of our Orthodox and Catholic faith in the English tradition. I'm Matthew Stewart, Digital Media Director for the Anglican Province of America, along with your hosts, Father Wade Miller and Father Randall Russell from St. Philip's Anglican Church in Blacksburg, Virginia. We're glad to have you with us as we dig deeper into the faith that was once for all delivered to the saints. To be our last episode of the season, we will be taking the summer off to recharge and come up with some new material for next season. This episode, we're going to focus on sort of a summer reading list that Father Miller has put together so you all can go crazy and order some books and do some reading. And next season, we will probably talk about some of these books. Anyway, without further ado, Father Miller, you have a huge stack of books in front of you that you're going to talk about.
I do.
So, I mean, a big stack.
Yeah.
So,
And some of them are multi-volumes that I didn't bring all of them in here, but yeah, the first thing I would say is the 1928 Book of Common Prayer. And that's the basis of our liturgy. And so when we started talking about at the very beginning, baptism, processional, and then getting into the liturgy and talking about everything from the salutation, all of that, it's based on the prayer book. And so I also have a copy of the Holy Bible with the Apocrypha and the authorized King James Version.
woohoo.
Yeah, and it's a prayer book Bible combination that I strongly recommend, and it's excellent. And it has the Psalter in there, which is the Coverdale Psalter. And so anyways, the prayer book, I know through our website in the Anglican Province of America, I know Father Eric Zwingert does that where you can order one or you can order a case of those.
Right. He has all those ready to purchase.
Yeah. So I would say that would be the starting point is the prayer book. And then if you wanted one of these, a copy, they're put out by the Anglican Parishes Association out of Athens, Georgia. And that's the prayer book Bible combination. And that's excellent.
Right. And I'll have all these titles and links in the show notes so folks can. Now, I will say some of these books are out of print and hard to find, but they can be found. It's just a little difficult, and some of them might be a little pricey, but I will put those in the show notes as well.
Yeah, and I'll try to mention the ones that I know are out of print or hard to find.
Right.
You can still find what I just mentioned, of course, the 1928 Book of Common Prayer, and now the prayer book and Bible combination. Those are still in print.
Yeah, and those are easy to find.
The next one's out of print. It's excellent. Father Randall has referenced this many times, and it's called the Oxford American Prayer Book Commentary by Massey Shepherd.
It's amazing.
It is really good. I wish that we could get the rights to reprint this because I think this should be kind of a must for anybody that wants to know more about where the actual liturgy of the prayer book comes from, and it gives you all that history. But it does it in a way that's very easy to understand too. So Massey Shepherd's The Oxford American Prayer Book Commentary is another great resource. If you want something that aligns a little bit more with the Missal, they have the People's American Missal. This is the American edition, and you can get this. It's very good. I'm not sure. I think this is still in print, but I might be wrong. But anyways, this gives you more in depth. So, for instance, Saints' Days. It gives you all the Saints' Day. So every day there's a Saints' Day.
Right.
And it has like the collect for that Saints' Day or whatever. And so this is another one that you might want to take a look at, especially if you're in a parish that primarily uses the Missal. Another great book that I can't recommend enough, matter of fact, my daughter uses this one, the St. Augustine's Prayer Book. Now, there will be those that say you need to get the old edition of the prayer book. The St. Augustine's Prayer Book. And that's great if you can find it. It's not in print anymore. But I'm not a purist when it comes to this. And so the newer version of this I like as well. This is what I use when people come to private confession.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also a great resource, especially when I travel, to be able to go and not only do morning and evening prayer from the prayer book, but then also like there's a lot of litanies, different litanies, things like that you can use. If I'm on a retreat, like if I go somewhere for a retreat, I use the St. Augustine's Prayer Book quite a bit. So that's another one. There's another book called an Anglican Prayer Book. Now, this was given to me as a gift, and I've used some of the prayers in here, but it's in contemporary English. It's put out by, and I know this probably is out of print because it was Preservation Press of the Prayer Book Society, but the Prayer Book Society might still publish this. This was in 2008, so you could probably get your hands on this, but it's just simply called an Anglican Prayer Book, and it's very good. A resource, I think anybody that's serious about liturgy or wanting to go, not just even with liturgy, but even theological explanations, definitions, is the Oxford Dictionary of the Christian Church. I have the 3rd edition, but it's Cross and Livingston were the editors of this, but this is a massive volume. It looks like a dictionary or encyclopedia.
It reminds me of it reminds me of my grandmother's old white coffee table Bible.
Yeah.
It's huge.
It is. It's huge. But like, for instance, if you want to find out about Ember Days, that's foreign to a lot of people that have no connection with or little connection with Anglicanism or the history of Anglicanism. Well, you just look up under Ember Days, and it gives you the whole history, tells why. It's so good. And this is a go-to. I know when I was doing my exams for the diocese, I probably used this resource more than anything else in terms of answering questions and stuff like that. But this isn't just for scholars. This is for everybody because it is just a great reference tool to have for those that want to go deeper into that. There are some other books here. So Jackie Jameson and our own Father Sean McDermott put together a couple of really good resources, and you can get these. They're available. The first one is, it's very short. It's very succinct. It's great. It's a guide to the Mass from the 1928 Book of Common Prayer. And so what it does is everything we do in the prayer book, not just for Mass, that's in there, but also like the Te Deum and stuff like that. It gives you an explanation and explains. So like, for instance, the Sursum Corda, it tells you the Latin, it just means lift up your hearts. But then it gives you a paragraph of an explanation of what that is. It's very good. And I use this in catechesis. So I have everybody get a copy of this and read through this because it also has very good visuals and just takes you from A to Z in terms of what we do in the Mass, and gives you short explanations of why. It's not meant to be exhaustive. It's really meant for, let's say, the Presbyterian, the Baptist, or somebody that comes off the street they come to the liturgy and they say, that was really beautiful. I have no idea what you were doing.
Right.
And so you give them this.
It's more of a primer, or give someone a sheepskin to be able to go deeper.
Exactly. Yeah. This is my tract that I give out to people. I don't leave it in urinals or anything like that.
That's a chick tract.
But this is my tract that I give to people, especially if they look like they're a deer in the headlights and afterwards you have a chance to talk to them. There's another resource, and they actually talk about this in here, that I think is phenomenal. But again, it's out of print. It's a little booklet called The Liturgy Explained by Thomas Howard. And that is outstanding. It is excellent. As a matter of fact, I've thought about, if that's out of print and we get the rights, I would like to reprint that, because I think that is just outstanding as well. So that's called The Liturgy Explained by Thomas Howard, which I think you can get used, but unfortunately they're becoming a little bit harder to find. I know several years ago, I bought like 10 used on Amazon. I don't know if it's still like that, but I doubt it. Another book by Thomas Howard I would recommend is called Evangelical is Not Enough, Worship of God in Liturgy and Sacrament. It's put out by Ignatius Press. Evangelical is Not Enough, Worship of God in Liturgy and Sacrament. We've used that for a Theology on Tap book. I've used that with some that maybe struggle because our Mass is so different than what they experienced in their evangelical upbringing. And Howard, who was an evangelical, who then converted and became Catholic, but he does a really good job of explaining how he's very charitable. He loved his evangelical background, so he's not throwing stones at all, but he says it was very limited. And to go deeper into the church, you've heard, I know Bishop Chad, one of his great sayings is, it's not about being high church or low church, it's about being deep church. And that's really what our Mass is. Another book also put together by Jackie Jameson, and this is for kids. It's Anglican Prayers for Children. This is outstanding, and it is very visual, but it also just goes through the Lord's Prayer, the Today. It goes through all these different, even the commandments, the 10 commandments, and it gives the child visuals. But unlike some of the children's stuff that looks like really cheesy, almost kind of weird art, this has very beautiful but classical art for children in it. And I cannot recommend this enough. I've had adults come and say, this is excellent. This has really been good for me. So this is one that I would recommend quite a bit. A couple other books. Now this one is hard to get, and because it's no longer under any kind of copyright, we made copies of this. This gets you more into the rubrics and the nuances of how to do the Mass. It's called the Celebrant's Manual, but it's not overwhelming. Some of that stuff, it's like put this thumb over this thumb and the Christological argument for that and all that stuff. That gets kind of ridiculous, in my opinion. This is really good because he does a great job on how to do our Mass, but it's not over the top. And it's a little booklet called The Celebrant's Manual, and it was put together by Thomas Burgess, and it used to be, mine's a 1934 edition, Morehouse Publishing Company. They quit publishing this, I think, when they went to the new Mass and went to the new prayer book. But this is based on the old prayer book and very good, 1928. Another great book that I've used in catechesis, and this book's so good, I used it for a summer series that was very well attended, and it's called Bible Basics for Catholics by Dr. John Bergsma. And this is put out by Augustine Institute, the reason why I say this is what Bergsma does is he shows where creation itself was the temple of God and how to understand Scripture based on this cosmic temple that was not only creation and the order of creation and all of that, but how that is then kind of the lens by which we read Scripture. So this is excellent. I've given this to people that maybe don't have much of a biblical background at all. As a matter of fact, one guy here, we met every Wednesday at Mill Mountain Coffee. It's one of our coffee places, and just read through this book together because he told me, he said, I have no understanding of Scripture. And this was very helpful to him. It's, again, Bible Basics for Catholics. Very good. Some other resources that we have are, we did this one for Theology on Tap. It's kind of a fun book. A lot of good artwork in it. It's by Percy Dermer. It's called Every Man's History of the Prayer Book. Very, very accessible, very readable, and at times even, I don't know if he was trying to be, but sometimes funny. So this kind of gives you a history of from the 1549 prayer book all the way up until really the 1662 and a little bit beyond that. But this is a really good read and also gets into some of the debates that were going on between the Puritans and the Anglicans and all of that. And I think this is a really good book. Another book is called The Bible and the Liturgy by Jean Danielou, or if you're from the South, old Jean Danielou. The Bible and the Liturgy is excellent. This was one of the most formative books that I've ever read, connecting Scripture and liturgy, understanding the liturgy, not being bound by time and space, getting into things like, for instance, the eighth day, what that means, does a lot with the Exodus and really makes the Bible come alive in terms of seeing that it's not just didactic, meaning it's not just thou shalt not, thou shalt, that type of thing, but seeing it in terms of a story and how the church then has really amplified some of the aspects of this story liturgically. This is excellent. I better not stack that up or we're going to have a Jenga.
It's teetering.
Yeah, that's right. Another book that we used for Theology on Tap that is excellent. This is written by an evangelical, but it's really good. It's called Worshiping with the Church Fathers by Christopher Hall. It's part of the InterVarsity Press series. And Hall was very influenced by Thomas Oden. And so this book is really good for those that maybe are kind of asking, why a liturgy? Where does it come from? Is this foreign to Scripture? And really what Hall is doing is he's taking the earliest of the church. And so, for instance, baptism, the way they understood baptism, how they baptized, the Lord's Supper, the Eucharist, and all of those things. It's really good, and I think it's an excellent book. If you want to go deeper, this guy is a phenomenal writer. Horton Davies did a 3-series called Worship and Theology in England, and it takes you from this volume's just from Cranmer to Baxter, but it takes you through the Wesley brothers, all the way through. Davies was a professor at Princeton. He also wrote a book. A Presbyterian gave it to me to try to convince me not to become Anglican, and it's called Worship of the English Puritans. That book actually convinced me even more to become Anglican. It's excellent. But Horton Davies is a really good scholar, but also he's just really, it's easy to read. He's giving you a lot in here, but he's making it where it's very readable, it's very digestible. So this is an excellent book, and this will get you into more of the the history of English liturgy and the prayer book and all that. Finally, there are 3 books that I've dabbled in, but I have not read cover to cover. The first one is Hans Boersma, Heavenly Participation, The Weaving of a Sacramental Tapestry. I've looked and read a little bit of this. This is going to be on my summer reading list to get more involved in this work. You can't go wrong with Boersma. He wrote a book that I just gave to somebody the other day on how to read scripture liturgically. And so Boersma is a professor at, I think he's in the Nashotah House.
He is.
Okay. So the other 2 books, so I had a seminary student here, Ian Gerals. And so Ian had told me that this book was really, really good. It's called The Liturgical Cosmos by David Fagerberg. He is very good. I've read some other stuff from him. I'm looking forward to getting into this, but this would come from my former seminarian who is going to be priested in the next few weeks, Ian Gerals, Liturgical Cosmos, and this is put out by Emmaus Academic Publishing. The final book, another Fagerberg book that I've been getting into and really enjoying, is called Liturgical Dogmatics. And it's kind of that understanding that our beliefs, our dogmas are formed not by an encyclopedia, but it's formed by the faith community in the liturgy. It's that lex orandi, lex credendi. And so Liturgical Dogmatics by Fagerberg is really good, and I would recommend that as well. So that's a lot, I know. But, that can keep you busy this summer.
Very busy.
Yeah, you'd have plenty to read. But those are the books that I think we, to a lesser and greater extent, but we've drawn from as we've talked about some of the concepts we've talked about. Some of them get you much more into the nuances that, we have just not tried to do. But this will be excellent. And there's also a 2-volume on, it's the Roman Rite, the Mass by Youngman, which is considered the standard work. It definitely connects with our prayer book liturgy, but it's more of Western liturgy and the Roman Mass, from back, before Vatican II. So the Youngman 2 volumes, I think it's called the Roman Rite or something like that, the Roman Mass. I don't have those in front of me, but that's for those that really want to geek out and really go deep. So, yeah. And then another book that Father Randall and I use a lot, because we don't just have Sunday Masses, but, for the feast days. So let's say, for instance, St. Mark the Evangelist or whatever, or even St. Nicholas or St. Patrick. It's called the Lesser Feasts and Fasts, but make sure you get the right edition. This one's the 1963 edition. You can still find them. There's a lot out there. But anyways, what it does is it gives you the propers, meaning like the epistle, the gospel text, and then also the collect, which is the prayer that goes along with that. One thing I'll say about this, as compared to the missal, the language of merit is not as, well, it's just not in this. And so sometimes that language can be confusing to those that hear, say, like, by the merits of, St. Patrick or whatever. Well, the Lesser Feast and Fast does not use that language, so it keeps it a little bit more on the simple level so that it's not as confusing. So those are the resources. Stu, do you have any questions?
No, that's a big stack. And I think people will really enjoy digging into these. I know I will enjoy digging into some of these myself.
Yeah.
But if you have any questions, we will still be available over the summer on email. You can email us at podcast@stphillipsblacksburg.org, or you can email us at podcast@anglicanprovince.org, and we will respond to you over the summer. I will also put all of these resources in the show notes, and if there is a link to purchase it, I will put that in there as well. If not, that means it's out of print, and you can probably search for it on Google, maybe eBay or ABE Books, something like that, and try to pick it up. But anyway, this is it for this season.
Yeah.
We will see you again after the summer break. So take care and have fun reading.